Hey, my name is Jared Moon, and I'm part of a group of underground athletes you've probably never even heard of before. We don't rely on fancy equipment for training, and most of us don't even have gym memberships. In fact, our motivation comes from within. You see, we have jobs, families, and responsibilities, but we still have big goals, and they aren't getting achieved at a global gym. For that reason, we have to do things differently. Our training has to be smarter. We don't have every piece of equipment known to man or a ton of time to train, and we don't need it, because we are achieving amazing things without it. So how do we do it? If you ask your average personal trainer or gym goer, they'd call us crazy. Yet we're seeing results better than most every single day. And it's happening by blending mental training with physical training and becoming an athlete. What we call, and welcome to, Garage Gym Athlete.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Garage Gym Athlete Podcast. Jared Moon here, and with me, as usual, as always, Joe Courtney. What's up, Joe?
What is up with you today?
Not a lot. Happy to introduce Lisa. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Yeah, we're going to get into some really cool stuff. Very excited about this episode. I immediately, as soon as we got on the call, I started asking her questions, and I was like, wait, stop. Don't answer any questions until we start recording for the podcast. So we're going to get into all of that. But Lisa, could you give us just to start a quick background, who you are, what you do for a living, how you train, all that good stuff?
Sure. So I'm Lisa Kelly, and I am fairly new to Garage Gym. I was in the Army for 10 years, not an athlete. I really didn't become an athlete until I got older, which is why I love that now that's like super hip to do, is like where you get old and then you become an athlete. So I'm like, I really like to think I'm like moving into my prime now as I round the corner on 40. But I'm a registered nurse by trade. I also own a restaurant, and I own a yoga studio, kind of little side projects. And I am sort of a like solo athlete. I've always kind of trained alone. So that's why like the garage gym life kind of works really well for me. I have a little gym built up that I train my own athletes at, which is basically 3 mini garages all connected together. And I train them there, but I do all my own, kind of stuff, just solo, sort of in a small one-man kind of a operation, in the garage, out of the garage, up and down the street, a little bit of everything. But I'm still relatively new to fitness over the last few years, and kind of enjoying learning about it and making it a lifestyle.
That's pretty incredible. So new, yet we'll get into it. Some major accomplishments under your belt. Before we get into that, you say you're kind of mixing between an actual space, garage gym space, home space. So what is the primary location?
So it kind of depends on what my training is. I have to be honest. If I have my choice, I would train outdoors every single day. I am famous for dragging a barbell outside and moving like up and down the street with it. And they promise it's like 8 million degrees in Texas right now, and those barbells get pretty hot. So I've got a space that basically it's kind of like a giant Connex.
Nice.
Which basically houses all of my, it's got, your basic like rigs, and then a couple of, some sleds, some sandbags that I assembled, and it's got a huge yard. So got some plyo boxes out there, a couple of tires, a couple of battle ropes laying around, but just a lot of basic barbell, although we have started adding in some dumbbells. So I'm excited to throw some bro curls in there.
Yeah, gotta have some curls.
Yeah. But that location is actually right down the street from my restaurant. And it was actually kind of a product of building the restaurant. Was I needed a place to train, and it was basically a field in an empty warehouse that my buddy owned. And I just started putting stuff there. So I put like a barbell, and then I put like a cooler of ice, and then I put a vest. And he's like, why are you putting all this crap in my yard, basically? And so it kind of built up alongside the restaurant so that I would have a training space. And then kind of slowly a couple of people started coming there. So it's kind of like the island of misfit toys for people who don't have a gym, but maybe don't have their own garage. It's kind of like a garage, like a co-op.
Nice.
Garage gym co-op.
That's
Best way to describe it.
Yeah, and you have to bring your own piece of equipment, and then you can train with us. That should
Next
be like the
business
buy-in.
venture.
Yeah.
To be fair, it was like that very much in the beginning. You can have 10-pound plates because that's what I have to offer. If you like anything more, you're going to need to bring that.
That's awesome.
Kind of, sort of started like it's kind of like yard sale. Like we like started pulling things together. We like watched gyms closing down and we're like, oh, that guy's got a barbell. Let's see if we can get it. So we sort of like piecemealed just the way you build a normal garage gym, and just on a slightly bigger scale. And we're like, okay, well, what do we want to get? Okay. Do we think we can we get this? Like, what does everybody want? Okay, well, let's get a skier. Let's all pool in for a skier. Things like that. So we kind of try to pool resources to, have something functional for everyone to use.
And you mentioned the gyms closing down. That's something to be on the lookout for. It just happened this past week. A gym closed down kind of locally, about 45 minutes away from us. My wife found out about it through like Facebook Marketplace. They were selling like 15 rowers, 15 Airdynes, all these plates.
Yeah.
And I clicked on it like maybe 4 hours after she sent it to me. And someone had already come in and bought everything they had, probably another gym or something like that. But I was just like, dang, if you can be on top of those things, you can really pick up some serious.
It is the best way to outfit your garage gym is find somebody who's going out of business, because they just, they're just trying to liquidate things and pay bills. So for the most part, unless you're looking at like big commercial gym equipment, for the most part, you can find a lot of really great stuff out there. You can find plates, you can find bars, you can find GHDs. Like I'm a huge fan of secondhand GHDs because they're like impossible to find. They're like the unicorn of equipment out there. But if you can find one, it's like worth its weight in gold.
And now the true unicorn now is going to be that Rogue Donkey. I don't know if you saw it.
Oh, I saw it.
the reverse hyper / GHD.
Started drooling.
Yeah. Well, I found they do an attachment. So I have the reverse hyper. I could add the attachment. The attachment alone is $1,100 just for the GHD, which is more than a GHD. So I don't understand. I guess it would be space saving is why I would spend the money on it. But okay, one thing I want to talk about. We got to talk about it because I'm sure there are a lot of things I want to cover as far as the actual doing, the prep, the recovery. You did Murph a few times in 24 hours. So you did 24 hours worth of Murph. So 24-hour AMRAP, absolutely amazing, super cool. So tell us all about it, why you did it, and then let's get into actually doing it and then the recovery.
Sure. So it's kind of this bizarre thing. Like I was never an athlete. I was never a competitor. And as I started kind of getting into fitness, I started dabbling in, what normal people do. I went to a CrossFit box and was like, yo, I'm a CrossFitter now. And it was like, okay, well, now you got to compete. And I'm like, all right, let's do that. And I did that and it was fun. And then it was like, let me try this and just trying different things. I did an Olympic lifting meet. I did a bunch of little things along the way. And they were great experiences, but I think there was kind of a component missing. It was like it was happen and then it was over and it was like, oh, okay, well, what do we do now? Like, what's the next thing to try? What can we try? What can we do? Because what I realized was as I was like figuring out fitness, I had spent so much time following all the rules of like what you're allowed to do. Like you can't train legs this many days a week. You can't do this. You can't do that. Like I felt like as I was learning fitness, it was all these things that you can't do. Like you're not allowed to do this.
Right.
It's like, yeah. I'm like, I don't know. And I would say things like, they say you can't do this. I don't know who they is. That's
the
why
T Nation article I read somewhere once.
Yeah, that's why why I love the whole concept of the Meet Yourself Saturday, because it's like, hey, we're going to do this. Like no one's going to tell us we can't do that. So anyway, I think Murph was just one of those workouts that really was kind of the unicorn to me when I started. I was telling someone a story the other day, like a few years ago, I couldn't do a pull-up, not a kipping pull-up, not a strict pull-up, not any kind of pull-up, not a jumping pull-up. Like I did not have the upper body strength to pull myself up. So I think that Murph had always kind of been like this unicorn to me. And then I finally like worked myself up to it, was able to do it. And I did it traditional for the very first time with 100, 200, 300. And I did one set of 2 and 98 sets of 1 pull-up. And I was like, nailed it. It was unvested, but I was so proud. It was like, okay, I managed to do this. I didn't die. And then each year I kind of got a little bit better and, you know, I learned a little bit more. And then last year on my birthday, I was like, we're going to do a triple Murph. And everyone's like, that's insane. I was like, no, we're going to do it. It's going to be great. And I had a couple friends, they trained with me and we did that. And then, you know, a year went by and my birthday passed and everyone's like, what are you going to do? And I was like, you know, I'm not really looking to do anything. And then I'm like this side person. I'm like in the background of this nonprofit. It's this really great nonprofit in town.
Looking through the window at these people.
I'm like the girl, like, they're like, oh, it's time for a charity bowling tournament. And I'm there bowling badly. And then they're like, oh, it's time for this event. And I'm there also doing that badly. But they do all this fundraising. And it was actually an organization designed to raise money for kids who wanted to go to school to be teachers. So it's this huge, like, local organization. They do scholarships for kids who become educators. So, you know, I just sat there and for years I've kind of watched this organization. I go to their big event every year, they give away their scholarships. It's really cool. And I went back to work at the VA in Temple, Texas, and I deal with a lot of nursing students there and a lot of new nurses and a lot of people, you know, trying to pay bills for nursing school. And I was like, man, I wonder if I could make if I could do something and like raise money for kids who wanted to go to nursing school, struggling nursing students. You know, these are people who want to grow up and basically give everything they have and work under very dire conditions. And I was like, you know, there's got to be something I can do to help. And so I was like going back and forth, like, man, what could I do? And then we were coming up on Memorial Day. In my head, I was looking at the long range calendar. And I was like, man, we could do something with Murph. I was like, yeah, we'll do like a donation-based Murph, and everyone will come and they'll do a donation. I was like, no, I was like, that's not going to work. And so I just woke up one day and I was like, this is what we're going to do, 24 hours of Murph. So I called my best friend, I told him, and he was like, yeah, no, we're not going to do that because you're going to die. So essentially, I don't like people, you know, it goes back to that whole, like, what can you do? What can you not do? And so I was like, no. So I like Googled 24-hour Murphs and I found one guy who had done it in the UK. And I was like, well, he did it. I was like, I feel like I should be able to do it. I couldn't find any info on anyone else. And I actually tried to find him because I wanted to ask him, like, hey, how do you do this without dying? But I couldn't find him. He might be dead. I don't know. He may have died. but like, so I tried to find him to kind of figure out, like, hey, what are the chances here? Is it physically possible? Can you do this without getting rhabdo and, you know, ending up in the hospital? So I didn't really have any like info to go off of with this. So I just kind of figured I needed to train, not really endurance, but I needed to train durability. So my whole focus became durability, not how strong am I, not how fast am I, but how long can my body sustain wear and tear. So my training focus completely shifted into like a durability mindset. And that kind of led me into like the training piece. You guys stop me and ask your questions when you have them, because I'll just keep on going.
Oh, no.
No, this is good.
Yeah, I'm good.
So what I did was I put a pull-up bar everywhere I was. Okay, so I built one in the garage, which is next to my slosh pipe, which we'll get to that story later. There's this sweet thing, you can build your own slosh pipe. I had to have one. That video is coming soon.
I was gonna say, I hope you have a video.
Yeah, it's pretty good. So I put one in the gym. There's obviously one in the, you know, the garage gym co-op, and then there's one in my house, in my garage. Then I put one in the office at the hospital. And I basically started, because I thought in my head, pull-ups are going to be the deal breaker. I was like, pull-ups are the deal breaker for everyone. I was like, this is going to be it. Pull-ups are going to be what wrecks me. And so I was like, okay, we got to train pull-ups. We got to put the pull-up bar everywhere we can and do as many pull-ups as possible. You know, I thought that, you know, the run would be the rest. The run would be the easy part. Like, you know, I was like, okay, the run's going to be easy. The squat's going to be easy. The push-ups are going to be a nightmare, but they're going to be fine. Let me just train as many pull-ups as possible. And when I was trying to come up with strategy, because I had come from kind of that mindset originally that like Murph was a mile run, 100, 200, 300, a mile run in that order. And that's kind of how and that's changed a lot, but in early CrossFit, that was kind of the like recognized like way to view Murph, I think very early on before people started, breaking it up in ways that worked for them. So I didn't want to partition it because I wasn't sure how true it would be to Lieutenant Michael Murphy, right? This was his workout. So I did the only thing I could think of, and I wrote to his family. And I basically said, hey, I'm going to do this. Maybe it's insane. I want to know if I broke it up, if I partitioned it, would that still be true to him and true to his love of this workout? And his dad actually wrote me back and said, my son always partitioned the reps. And so
you just cleared that one up for everybody, which is awesome.
Yeah.
It really it touched me so much that he took the time to write back, and it gave me a huge freeing position to train, where I knew I was going to wear the vest the entire time because the workout was originally called body armor. So it wouldn't be true to it if I wasn't wearing the vest. I did take it off to stretch in between Murphs, but we'll get to that. But his dad said, my son always partitioned the reps. Best of luck. He sent me a really nice email. And so it was really great. And that really changed the way I viewed the whole thing.
Yeah, so there's a breakdown. Like that's where people always get confused in like the conversations I've had with, because, I've done Murph for a year every week. This is my second time going around, hundreds of Murphs completed in total. And that's what everyone always writes into me to ask or whatever. Like when they originally published the workout, they said, a small little asterisk, partition as needed. But then people were like, well, that's the scaled version, so it doesn't really count. Or people were like, well, that's CrossFit's version. Murphy didn't actually do, partitioned. And like everyone has all these like hearsay. Yeah. Like the things they've heard or things that they've picked up. But that's about as close to the source as you can get. So.
Yeah. And I kind of did it for a few reasons. Number one, because I felt like I needed to know true to my heart. Because if he had said, no, he always did it 100, 200, and 300, I would have done it that way. I would not have gotten as many done because that 100 pull-ups in a row would have probably wrecked my hands. But I also kind of did it because I didn't want to do this big 24-hour Murph and then have people write in, well, you didn't really do Murph for 24 hours because you didn't do it right. Like, that's all I could see in my head. And I was like, I'm going to have to fight somebody.
And those people will have never completed Murph a day in their life. Just
right. I'm like, I'm waiting for the Murph trolls to come out and be like, nah, girl, that cool story, but you didn't actually do it. So once I had that piece, it really kind of set my mind and it set my heart in the right place where I knew, okay, look, I'm going to partition it 5, 10, 15 for 20 rounds, in between the miles. And I'm going to go with that. And then I can further break it down. Like if it gets real ugly and I have to, break those down into smaller sets along the way, it's fine. So I felt pretty confident going into training in that respect. One of the things I figured out early on is if you're going to do 24 hours of Murph, you cannot kip your pull-ups. Absolutely. Like not a single pull-up can be kipped because you will destroy your hands. Like there is no functional way to, at least listen, and if you've done 24-hour Murph and you want to prove to me otherwise, feel free to let me know. But you cannot put pull-ups on a 24-hour Murph. Not possible. So I did all 1,000 of them stripped.
Dang, that's crazy. I also think, I just thinking about this. So I've had one other guy reach out to me. He actually did 24 hours of Murph the same day that you did. Wow. I didn't know it till after the fact. He's not necessarily a garage gym athlete or anything, but he just messaged me because he had read some of my Murph articles and everything like that. And that was my question as well. And something I wanted to ask you was about the kipping, because not only like would you tear up your hands, if you slow yourself down even the slightest bit on the downward motion of a kipping pull-up, you can severely damage your muscles, just trying to keep this as simple as possible for everyone listening. But
right.
if you force yourself up to a bar with momentum, but lower yourself because you can handle more in the eccentric portion of the lift,
right,
you're going to tear your muscles apart. And so that's where rhabdo gets really, really dangerous. With something 24 hours with 1,000 repetitions, you could like not have biceps at the end of it. So that's why I was
Right.
curious as to the kip versus strict. So that's good to know.
So I went with all strict. And the other thing is that I realized is I did further break them down, because when I was doing the sets of 5, what I realized was my grip was getting tired. Like my grip was tired, and I'd come off the bar and I'd have the, you know, like when you do multiple, I'd have like the hooked, like it would take a while before my hands would straighten. And I was like, that's not going to work. We can't sustain that. So listen, I told myself, if I have to get on, do a pull-up, get off, get on, do a pull-up, get off, as long as my hands and my grip didn't get tired and my hands didn't tear, I'd be fine. I knew that I was strong enough to sustain every single rep. I just knew that I had to preserve my grip, because I figured once the grip went, there's no, like, you can run when you're tired.
Yeah, grip doesn't come back.
Yeah, your grip is it's not gonna recover. I was gonna get popsicles to freeze and hold on to try to like heal and recover the grip. But my grip, because I trained so many pull-ups, like if there's one thing I did right, it was train the pull-ups nonstop, because I had just such great grip going into it. The only thing was, when I was training, is I started getting a lot of like tendon issues in my elbows just from constant movement. But one of my pull-up bars had the neutral grip, has the side grips. So I was able to like switch to neutral grip during my training. Now, all of them in actual Murph or traditional regular overhand, because I don't have any neutral grip options. But that's how I recovered my joints in training, because you can only do so many like high volume strict pull-ups before your tendons, I think, start to like get super angry. So switching the grip, even switching back and forth in training between like chin-ups, neutral, and traditional, was a huge benefit. So that's pull-ups.
All right, so you ended up doing 10 total, right?
Total.
So 20 miles, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. That's pretty freaking impressive. The running is what impresses me most, because you're like so close to a marathon on top of doing all these other repetitions in a 24-hour time period. That's a taxing event.
Right. And I'm not a runner. I'm really not. Like, I don't love it. And it was really, really humid here. But if there was one thing I wish I had done, I wish I would have trained the run more.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is because I trained durability in my joints, but I should have trained more of the wear and tear of wearing the vest to run.
Yeah.
Because you don't account for the weight of the vest on your back. Because I'm like super short torso. I have like a 4-inch tall torso. At 5 feet tall, I'm all legs. I'm trying to brag. But that vest is so much, it's just wear and tear on the body. And so that is a piece that I missed. I wish I would have trained the run more. I think the run is overlooked, because you're like, okay, well, this is, the run, when you think about regular Murph, like the run is where you catch time. Like you catch time. If you're a runner, that's where you make up your time, so I was like, oh, well, I don't have to run fast. In fact, I'm going to use the run in the opposite. I'm using run as recovery during 24 hours of Murph, not as a way to pick up time, So it was kind of an opposite mindset, which I had a really hard time slowing down my miles at first. So I got this endurance runner to come and pace me. So he would run next to me and be like, slow down, slow down, slow down, because I wanted to use it as recovery so that I could walk right back in and just start going and not have to break. So
that's awesome. Now let's hear about the aftermath. So you're finished. How was the next day, week, whatever it took?
Were a lot of tears. So I was actually like afraid to go home, because I was like, I'm going to get in bed. I'm going to die. If I fall asleep and don't move, my entire body is just going to break. Like, it's going to be. So this is what I did. I did the worst thing in the world. I went home and I drank a root beer float, which was amazing. Not a protein shake. I probably consumed like not nearly enough protein. And if you do 24 hours of Murph, eat protein, would be good for you. But I came home and drank a root beer float. I did not shower. Gross. Okay. I did not shower, and I drank a root beer float, and I passed out on my couch under like 150-degree heating blanket. And then when I finally woke up and tried to shower and go to bed, I could not physically get in my bed. like my body wouldn't move. And I just cried. I was like, this is how it ends. This is how it ends right now. So it was the first 24 hours were really, really rough. I told myself I'd take a full 96 hours off and not do anything, which in a way was a little bit of a mistake because I should have moved a little bit. Yeah. I should have moved, but I had really bad knee pain at the end, like Murph 7 or 8. And I was like, oh geez, I jacked my knee up. I didn't, it was just overuse because it cleared up in like a day or two after icing it. But so anyway, so I'm like paralyzed. I can't walk. I can't stand, sit, or breathe. What amazed me was how sore my abs were. So I didn't really think about all the core engagement of the pull-ups and of the push-ups. My abs were wrecked. Like my entire core hurt worse than anything. So like I was debilitated. So I decided to go to cryotherapy, right? So like I'm a huge fan of cryo and I do all the compression boots and all that. I'm like, okay. And I show up, but the thing about cryo is that you're supposed to move. Like you're not supposed to just like stand there because it's really cold. And so I go there and they're like, you can't move. And I'm like, yeah, I know. Like I can barely walk in here. And they're like, yeah, you should probably not do this because you can't actually like functionally move. Like you can't just stand in there like stagnant and you'd probably turn into a popsicle. Like the whole thing behind it is you have to move. So I was like, okay, well, I'm going to wait and I'm going to come back. But what happened was I was holding so much fluid. So I carried like an extra 9 pounds for almost a full week. That has a lot to do with all the salt tablets I took and all the pickle juice I drank. So I was real scared. I was like, I had a really bad Charlie horse last year. I was like, I'm going to get a Charlie horse. I'm going to be dead. So I was like, don't take more than 10 salt tablets in 24 hours. I'm like 10, 40, whatever. We're taking. So I was like a bloated Stay Puft salt man. And so I was so swollen, like my body was just so swollen that my good friend was like, hey, come to the gym this evening. You know, everyone wants to see you. But it was a trick because he bought a giant ice trough and was like, we're putting you in the ice bath because he's old school. And it's like 20 years ago when we played football, this is what we did. And it's always worked and we're going to do it today. So the idea was not muscle recovery. It was to try and reduce the swelling. I am not a fan. Let me just go on the record and say, I don't think you should sit in an ice bath. It's terrible.
Oh, your face said it all in that video.
It is the worst ever. Cryo is not that bad because you can move around and it's not like wetness. But yeah, that was pretty terrible. And I would definitely feel confident in saying I would never do that again. I mean, I would probably for like $100 I would do it. But I wouldn't like choose to do. I do think it helped. I think it was, you know, I'd been icing my joints. I do think it helped. Honestly, if I was going to do it, I should have stayed in a little bit longer. So, I mean, it was already there and I was already basically numb.
I saw your video and it looked like an excessive amount of ice. So
right.
I think whatever time you spent in there, because there is, like we just covered this on a recent podcast. There's a correct temperature to do that at. And I guarantee with how much ice he had in there, like it had to have been like 33 degrees.
There was so much ice in there. I was like, but I also couldn't move. So like the funny part of the video is that he picks me up and then pulls me out because I literally cannot get in because I can't move. It's 24 hours after Murph. I can't even like move my legs. Yeah, it was like mostly ice and no water. That shit was like frozen.
That's what it looked like. It looked like he just put you in like an ice.
Just ice.
Machine. Yeah. With a little bit of water in there. Yeah.
It just sat me in there and just filled it with ice around me. So it was pretty miserable. I do think it helped. I did a lot of, it took a lot of turmeric to heal myself from 24 hours of Murph, but I'm a huge like fan of golden milk. So I tried to eat really well after Murph, like just as much. I tried to eat a lot, but I tried to eat a lot of nutritious things. Cause when I was doing Murph, it was peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, quesadillas, red vine licorice. Pickled.
That's some good and bold choices.
like my high school diet.
They were, if I had thrown up, I think that it would have been the most horrific thing that anyone had ever seen. Because I had basically made a pickle juice and peanut butter and jelly smoothie in my stomach, which 24
red flakes.
me, I have a rock solid stomach.
Nice.
Well, that's pretty impressive. You know, going 24 hours is a long event, and recovering from them is always the key there. That's what I've had a bunch of people. Oh, it's funny. My dad's actually in our Facebook group, the Garage Gym Athlete group, and he saw your Murph, and he's like, I see that she's doing the 24-hour Murph, and she's like, he was like, are you gonna do it? And I was like, I haven't even thought about it. And he's like, don't do it. Like, don't. He's like, I don't want to be a part of that. Like, I just don't do it. And I'm like, why not? He's like, I just don't think that you should do it. And I was like, well, let's see how she does. And then I can think about it a little bit more. And but my dad is already like, please don't do that. Because there is some serious risk there. So I think
there is. And I really I talked to my doctors, and I actually didn't think I was going to get rhabdo. I actually thought I was going to get compartment syndrome in one of my calves. That's what I thought. So I literally took a week off of work at the hospital because I thought in my head, I was like, I'm going to get compartment syndrome. They're going to have to slice my leg over with the fasciotomy. It's going to be bleeding everywhere. Like, I had this crazy picture in my head, this amazing Lifetime movie that I wrote. And then I was home and drinking a root beer float. And I was like, well, that was anticlimactic.
Right.
But, there were a lot of, and I talked to a lot of, I talked to my doc, and I talked to a couple of friends who were providers to kind of try to mitigate the risk. I did have a guy message a friend of mine and say, I'm going to come down and do it with her. And I was like, no, you're not.
If you haven't trained at all, maybe not a good idea.
I said that would make me completely irresponsible. I was like, so people came out, and it was great because I had so much support from the community, and people came out and some people ran with me. Some people did a Murph, or two. Some people, the whole community came out at 8 the next morning to finish with me. But I did have a lot of concerns going into it, but I also trained, I also put a lot of work into it and trained literally strictly Murph for months. So I knew that that my body could sustain it. But yeah, I would not recommend it for anyone who's just like, oh, this is a good idea. And that one girl, she did it. I think I'm going to do that too. Horrible idea. It requires a lot of preparation and mental planning. There's a lot of darkness that happens in 24 hours of Murph.
Oh yeah. Any event. We've had a lot of athletes do the STAR course with GoRuck, which is, 20 plus hours of rucking. And it's similar, it's not near as challenging as something like a 24-hour Murph, but the things that you have to train for beyond the event, things like you're mentioning, is just the discomfort from your clothes touching your body, being wet, and the shoes on your feet. They're so many things that you can't actually plan for. You can do these mildly stimulating things or simulation type stuff, but that's the same way it was in the military. Is you can't. Right. You can only train so much, but once you get out there and do it, that's the real test,
Right. And I think, with Murph, kind of my thought was, okay, the run will be the recovery, or the squats. To me, I was like, okay, the squats are going to be where I kind of catch my breath and kind of refocus. What I didn't anticipate was that every single movement would become torture. There was no easy event. Everyone's got their one part of it that they're really good at, and then something they struggle on. Every single rep of every single movement became just murder. And it was a mental struggle just to do one more push-up. In fact, those push-ups turned into sets of 1 at the end, and they were only sets of 1 because I couldn't do anything less than 1. And I mean, they were brutal. And I famously, we refer to Murph 8 as the worst of all the Murphs. Murph 8 took as long as Murph 1 and 2 combined.
Yeah, I could see.
And there were so many tears, and it was there's so many hours left. I'm how am I going to do? I'm going to die, or I'm going to stop. And the run course goes down a main road, and the guy I was running with, I was like, look, what would it cost for you to push me into the road? He's I was casually, not enough. I was or to drive your car and come up on I'm not to kill me, but just enough that I could save face if I tapped out right now.
Right.
I was $100. I'm at this point, each Murph, I was what about 200? I'm just clip me just a little bit. because it just got, it was just that painful that I was negotiating being hit by a car to stop.
And then that's where the mental side of things goes. Well, let's get to some of these other questions to close out. I don't want to run out of time. So I don't know if I have to ask this question, but hey, maybe I do. What is the hardest workout you've ever done?
Can we say besides? I mean, that's like 10 workouts.
I think it depends. I think the hardest workout is every workout that you see, that you look at and go, there's no way I can fucking do that. Like I looked at, it was like 7 minutes of lunges the other day in the programming. And I remember the first time I had done it was like an 800 meter of lunges. And I was like, you can't lunge a half mile. This is not that's not physically possible. So I think the hardest workout is any workout you go into that you just think is impossible to do. So I think that hard workouts, like the hardest workout for me always kind of reappears, because it's like, okay, I just finished the hardest workout. Well, I did it, so now it's not the hardest. And then I'll see something new and I'm like, what is this tragic thing? So I mean, I don't think there's one like in particular hardest workout for me anymore. I think there's always a new hardest workout that I look at and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. There's no way. Right now it's anything that involves the slosh pipe. Yeah.
So you ran across the DIY plans, huh?
I'm a huge fan. So I'm like, I need a slosh pipe. Now keep in mind, my husband had spinal surgery. And the day before he goes in for surgery, he's like, hey, is there anything you need me to do? Because I'm not going to be able to lift more than 5 pounds. I'm like, I need a slosh pipe. He's like, of course you do. I was like, but I need it like right now. Even though I hadn't even done Murph yet. I was like, I need the slosh pipe now. And he's reading it and he goes, well, do you want me to make you the smaller diameter one? He's like, because you're not super big. I'm like, I'm about to do 24 hours. Make the full size slosh pipe. Cool. So we get in the yard and he hands me the slosh pipe and I'm like, he's like, this is really heavy. And it's really hard to move. I'm like, nah, it's fine. So he hands it to me and I pick it up and I'm like, okay, let it go. Just let it go. And he's like, okay. And I'm like,
yeah,
pretty much.
And that is where I stayed. I was like, he's like, are you doing anything? I'm like, nope.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah.
Too much water.
Then you seesaw back and
Too
forth.
much water, too much slosh, too much pipe. But listen, I am going to rebattle the slosh pipe once I'm now pretty much fully recovered. I am going to, but it's at my house now and I'm like, how do you transport this? I was like, I'm going to take it to the yard and let all the other athletes use it. And I'm like, I don't know how to drive this anywhere. It's not going to fit in my Lincoln.
Yeah, it's like 10 feet long, depending on how long you have.
Oh yeah, it's the full 10.
Sticking out the window.
Yeah, that thing, mine is actually stored. I think it's at my dad's house or something like that, because we moved around a bunch. But yeah, it will dance you all over the place, and it's a lot more challenging than it looks.
Yeah.
All right. In your opinion,
I will make the slosh pipe.
What's the best activity for building mental toughness?
24 hours of Murph.
There we go. Everyone has to do it now.
Yeah, now if you want to be mentally tough, you'll do 24 hours of Murph. That's it. You know what? It goes back to hardest workout. It's taking something that you don't think you can do and then doing it. And that for everybody, I think is very different. Like some people can row and some people can run, and everybody has their things that they're really, really good at. And then everyone has the things that are like hard for them, like based on their body type or based on whatever it is, their skill level. So I think literally, like, I'm a huge fan of training your strengths. Like, I mean, weaknesses are fun too, but like, I'd really just rather get really good at the stuff I'm good at.
Yeah,
and then,
I agree with that.
Ignore the other stuff.
That's like burpees for you because you're already close to the ground.
Dude, I'm so good at burpees. I'm like in the ground. Wall balls, that's a different story. But listen, I tell everyone, like, if you got to make a list of like the 5 things that you either aren't good at or you hate. Like, what are the things you don't like to do as far as mental toughness? Because listen, like, there's so many, like, I love hang cleans. I will hang clean all day long. It's like my favorite. That's not going to make me mentally tougher. I'm going to have fun. and it's going to make me feel mentally good. But I think you have to take the things that you're not good at or the things you don't like. I have friends all the time who are like, oh my God, I hate burpees. Can't believe you have to do burpees. I'm like, then you need to do, 1,000 burpees for time right now. I was like, that's going to, like, you have to look at the things that you just want to avoid. I think mental toughness comes from like finding things that you might naturally want to avoid and then taking them head on. And if that's running for you, because I have friends who hate to run, if that's running for you, and it doesn't have to be a marathon, maybe it's a 5K, maybe it's something small, but like they just have that mental block. Everyone's got like something they've assigned, like, I hate this so much, I'm not ever going to do this. The best way to get mentally tough is to kind of like surpass that and go, okay, look, I am going to do it. And this is what's going to happen. Because I think you come out on the other end a little bit, better, stronger, tougher.
Yeah, you learn a lot in the like I do a 100-mile bike race every year up in Wichita Falls, and it's not because I'm a cyclist. Like the first time I did it was absolutely for the reason you said. I was like, oh, that sounds like the worst thing ever. Sitting on a bike for 100 miles, like that sounds really terrible. I was like, all right, I should probably give it a try.
Right. Like I'm not a swimmer. Like I don't even know if I can swim. Okay. I thought I could swim, and then I found my swim like diploma like years later from when I was like 6 years old, and the box was checked like should recommend repeat the class. Screwed me, even though they like let me graduate and gave me a lollipop. I was like, it turns out I was not a swimmer. So I kind of keep telling myself that's going to be the next thing. Like I'm going to swim. I'm going to do some crazy swim because it's something I am not good at. I don't train. I have no experience in, and I apparently failed when I was 6 years old. So it's the same thing. It's like finding something that's going to create that. It's so easy to walk into something you're good at, and it's a lot harder to walk into something you're not good at. So,
and just heads up on the swim, that is the most dangerous form of fitness.
It's not for me.
I'm fairly confident. I'm going to start at the Boys and Girls Club with some floaties.
There you go.
And so I'm not going to like swim across an ocean.
24-hour ocean swim. We never hear from Lisa again.
Yeah, well, she did die. But yeah, I think that when it comes to mental toughness, you just have to try the things that you just feel are like such a terrible idea, that I don't know. That's what I think.
All right. Now, if you could only have one piece of equipment to train with for the rest of your life, what would it be?
So I've been thinking about this. I was going to say slosh pipe, except right now there is no training happening with slosh pipe. I go back and forth on this because like I want to say a barbell, but then I don't think that counts. Like if I get to have plates with it. So I think that if I could only have one piece of equipment, it would be a heavy, heavy, heavy set of dumbbells, a pair, both of them, because I feel like you have so much versatility with them because you can use one or you can use both. You can train grip. I was like, oh, I'll take a barbell, but then I was like, then I can't farmer's walk. I was like, so that wouldn't be good.
You could, it'd just be awkward.
It would. I think it would honestly, I think you can do so much with a set of dumbbells, especially if they're heavier than you think you can use, because you can level down to one dumbbell, and you can I just feel like dumbbells are so versatile, and I love the barbell from a happiness perspective. I think I would choose a barbell. Do I think that, I don't know. It's tough. I think one solid set, like if I was on a desert island and they were like, you get nothing, it would be a set of dumbbells. Cause I feel like functionally I could do the most with those in the desert.
So why don't we just give you like adjustable dumbbells that go up to 100?
Right. That would work too.
There we go. That's one. It's technically one piece, but it's really like 24 pieces. Like, so
I was like, can I pick a barbell? But then I'm gonna need all the plates to go with it.
Yeah. We normally allow people to have the plates just because a barbell by itself is not very useful for most people.
Okay, well then I might go back to that. But it kind of depends. I'll get super obsessed with like one thing. Like if you had asked me after I got really good at pull-ups, I would have told you a pull-up bar. Because I think like this is speaking about women, like if you're a girl and I've never been a guy, so I can't speak to this, but if you're a girl and you can do pull-ups, like, and you can get to a point where you can do pull-ups, you could essentially you could get yourself in good enough shape with just a pull-up bar that you probably wouldn't need anything else. If you're strong enough to repeatedly move your body, then you're going to be okay. That's my theory.
Hey, I think pull-ups are really important. And if you can do strict ones, you're pretty well off.
Yeah.
All right. Last question of the show. What is your best advice for all the garage gym athletes out there listening right now?
I think the best advice is don't be afraid to try things, and don't be afraid to try things that mainstream fitness tells you can't do. I just feel like, fitness is changing so much. The athlete community is changing so much. Like I said, like, it used to be like, if you weren't an athlete in high school, that was it. That ship had sailed. But now it's like the world is completely changing. And now everyone's getting into athleticism in their 30s and their 40s and their 50s, 60s, 70s. Jeez, nobody's too old to try something new. As long as you train correctly, you can honestly do anything. So pick a goal, regardless of what it looks like, and then build, make sure you're following training that makes sense. Like there's nothing that's impossible as long as you have a practical plan. I think anything is possible to achieve, maybe minus swimming across the ocean.
I like the practical plan part. Don't look for the quick fix.
Yeah. You're not going to wake up and be like 24 hours of Murph seems like a good plan. Like I kind of want to punch people in the face that say that. I'm like, first of all, that's insulting, because you have any idea how hard this was? But I think that's it. I think it's don't limit yourself by what you think you can or can't do. Pick the goal and then build the plan. As long as you have enough time and you have the right plan going into it, food, recovery, training, you can do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah. And to be honest, so when you were like doing the 24 hours of Murph, I knew about it. And I was like, I should just go do it with her. I had this thought. I do Murph every single week. I've done triple Murph, not that big of a deal. But even then I was like, she's in Texas. This is great. Like, I could probably do it. And then I was like, no, I haven't trained for it. Like, and I'm probably more prepared than most people would be for an event like that. But I still don't think I'm fully prepared, because I it wasn't in my training plan to tackle. So if anyone's thinking about just randomly doing that, don't just do it.
It's funny, because I was like, I did a triple Murph, but you know what I realized when I look back at it? I only did one of them vested. The other two were unvested. So
yeah, big difference too. That volume across 10 Murphs adds up significantly.
Yeah, I was like, oh man. I was like, I'm good. I know I can do 3. And I was like, no, I can't. I can't do 3. I've never done 3 vested. So kind of like looking back at the training going, might have forgot that part.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Vest changes things. We've had athletes too who are like, they've been doing unvested Murph for a long time, working up to the vested Murph, and they finally throw a vest on. They're like, holy shit, that's a big difference. It's like, it's only 20 pounds, but it is.
It's significant.
All right, Lisa. Well, it's been a blast having you on the podcast. I'm sure you'll be back at some point, because we have a lot more to talk about, and it felt short, but I appreciate you being here. Thanks for the time and sharing all the great info.
Of course. Thanks for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yep.